The Upspin. Simple steps to walk away from anxiety and depression.
Heidi-ho, everybody. It is The Upspin, and I'm Wayne Tapia. Hello. Here we are in another week. Glad to be here. Glad to be here talking to you nice folks. So, first of all, I'm just going to preface all of this with if there's a little extra noise in the background, I've got a fan blowing into the studio because, well, it's kind of a long story. I live in it's not really an apartment, but it's kind of a smaller house. It's kind of a mother-in-law house behind a larger house. And my studio is in it, and I believe that there is a rat that died in the crawl space underneath the house, underneath my studio, because it kind of smells like a dead rat in here. And I've looked around and there's no dead animals like in the studio or anything, so I'm pretty sure it's underneath the building, and I'm going to have somebody come out and extract the stinkiness that is causing the fan noise in the background, because I've got a fan, I've got all these kind of smelly girly candles burning in the studio right now because it smells like a dead rat. But anyways, we will get through the show nonetheless. Okay, through most of the podcast, I've been talking about depression and how to deal with depression, and just kind of touching on anxiety. Today, I want to go a little deeper into anxiety and some of those issues. Personally, I've never been really one that has been affected by hardcore anxiety issues. I mean, everybody has minor anxiety attacks before maybe a job interview or, going on that first date kind of anxiety, that sort of nervous thing. But there are some people out there, and, people that I know and people that I love, that have been just really crippled by anxiety problems. And in the modern day, it seems like it's really been ramping up. I mean, one easy example is, say you're going to go and buy a baby stroller or something like that, and you get to the store where all the baby strollers are, and there's 50 of them, and you start looking, and this one's got some cool features, but this one over here's got a couple of features that this first one didn't have, and then this third one, oh man, that one's got all these other safety features that the first two didn't have, and then it's just this kind of this paralysis by too many choices, and you get anxious, and you don't want to make the wrong choice. And I mean, I have personally, because I have two daughters, I personally have felt this kind of thing. Buying strollers, buying car seats. You get to these stores and you just start freaking out because there's just so many choices, and you don't want to make the wrong choice. And I'd like to try to maybe take today and see if we can't figure out a way to grab all of those disparate threads that are all tangled up, unwind them, and just kind of run a nice comb through them and make them all silky and luxurious. Does that make any sense? Are my analogies making sense? If not, shoot me an email and I'll try to come up with better analogies. Depression is all about living in the past, living out those bad memories or mistakes or whatever, and just kind of dwelling on those and not being able to get past them. Anxiety is more about thinking about possible mistakes and trying to prognosticate, trying to predict the future, and being worried about making proper choices or doing the right thing. Kind of boils down to some of that. I remember being in a relationship with somebody who had a father who, while he meant well, pretty much she would go to get advice from him about whatever. And while explaining the pros and cons, he would always really seem to emphasize the cons instead of the pros for whatever kind of, buying a car, buying this kind of car. There's just so, it was always he would always accentuate, well, if this could happen and this could happen and this bad thing could happen and this thing could happen. And while he meant well, I'm sure that seemed to just kind of solidify in her brain the fact that for every decision she made, there are going to be a million things that could go completely wrong with that decision. And unfortunately, when she got into her adult life, she carried that with her. And it just made it really difficult for her to make decisions about things because she would always be worried about what could go wrong with any given decision she makes. And that is definitely a form of anxiety when you cannot make a decision because you're so worried about something that could possibly go wrong. Doesn't mean that it will go that way, but there's just the slight possibility, well, this could happen. And unfortunately, I see that happening in a lot of people. Just the way society is nowadays, and the way, people online on social media kind of like to be in a competition with each other for, this bad thing happened to me. Well, this bad thing happened to me. Well, this bad thing happened to me. People get in these competitions for what the worst possible thing that could happen to them. Meanwhile, the person that has a little bit of anxiety, they see this and they're trying to make a decision about something and they're reading about all these horrible things that happen to these people that actually, for the most part, never happen. That's the big secret. It's kind of difficult, and they reach this paralysis, this mental paralysis where they can't make a decision and they don't want to do anything. This can lead to even more extreme cases where people are afraid to go outside. People are afraid to meet new people, to make, new connections. It turns into this whole mental process of trying to predict the future, but the future that is being predicted is all negative. And that's just no way to live. So after the break here, I'm going to maybe try to talk a little bit about ways you can break through that. Okay? I'll be right back.
You've been listening to The Upspin with Wayne Tapia.
I am not a medical doctor. The techniques and procedures described in this podcast are not intended to replace professional medical advice or doctor-prescribed medications. If there's any time that you feel that you're alone and you want to hurt yourself, please call the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline, 1-800-273-8255. You're not alone. Okay, welcome back after a little bit of bill paying there. So, anxiety. Let's kind of see if we can peel away some of the layers of this here and get down to the core, or at least maybe get you on the road to getting to the bottom of your anxiety and being able to control it better. Now, in earlier episodes, I've spoken about mindful meditation and how that can help with things like depression and anxiety. And I just can't stress this more. It is such an excellent tool for getting yourself in tune with your own feelings and your body and the way you feel. Not necessarily emotionally, but just the way you feel. I mean, there are chemicals released in your brain and endorphins and adrenaline and things like that, and it makes your body feel differently, not necessarily emotionally, but just kind of, it's a physical, it's almost a tangible kind of feel when you're anxious. you get tightened up and all of that. So if you can just try, I mean, you don't necessarily have to follow my mindful meditation guidelines. There are tons of resources online about how to meditate and what mindful meditation is. But I guarantee you, if you can do some of that, it'll help you on some of these following steps that I'm going to describe. The primary thing that you need to internalize is that you are not going to be in control of everything. That's completely impossible. You cannot be in control of everything, and you need to learn to accept that fact. And just tell yourself that. Just tell yourself that every day. I am not in control of everything, but what you are in control of, do your best at whatever that might be. Ultimately, all you can really do in this life is do your best. I mean, you know, if you've given your best, if there is something in your control and you have given it your all and you've given it your 110%, that's all you can do, and you have to be happy with that. Or at least maybe not, you know, if it wasn't 110%, at least put all of your cards on the table, put all of your effort into whatever it is it might be. The things that are out of your control, I mean, unfortunately, some of those things might suck really bad, but you can't control them. It's not a great idea to worry about the things that are completely out of your control. In the current political and social climate right now, that might be really difficult to deal with. I mean, there's a lot of chaos going on, and a lot of, you know, with the coronavirus and the political upheaval in the United States and maybe in some other countries. It can be really difficult to deal with. I would say, you know, not necessarily ignore them, but don't get too emotionally wrapped up. Because if you get too involved in something that is completely out of your control, it can drive you completely mad. Try not to dwell on the things that you can't control. One thing you might want to think about doing is try to identify the triggers of your anxiety. Now, you can maybe do this on your own, or if you're in therapy, you can talk with your therapist about it, you know, because they might be really obvious, but they're not always obvious. So some possible triggers, you know, maybe you've got a really stressful job, or, you know, like your work environment. Genetics is a big thing. I know anxiety and depression runs in families. Could be that you're on a specific medication that is causing some anxiety with you. You know, just some certain side effects from medications can cause anxiety and depression. So that's always something to be careful of. If you're on medication for your anxiety, there are cases where the anxiety medication can make it worse. So definitely be talking to your doctor about that stuff. If you have any specific phobias, you know, whether it's spiders or going outside or fear of crowds or fear of, you know, like claustrophobia, things like that, those can be anxiety triggers. Make sure you identify these things. And if you can identify them, write them down. If you have a journal, write them down in your journal. If you don't have a journal, get a journal and write them down in your journal. Because the more you write in a journal and the more you just spill your feelings out, you can kind of, it's easier to dissect your own brain and kind of pick yourself apart when you write down in a journal and you go back and you look at it later. One thing about depression and anxiety, they can really be lessened with exercise, or at least just trying to keep yourself healthy. So, you know, keep an eye on your diet. Make sure you're not sitting around just eating a bunch of crap. Try to get some exercise. Take the stairs if you can. get out and walk, get out and move, get out in nature. But I mean, even just walking through your neighborhood, walking down the street, go to a park, whatever. Get out there and get some exercise, because it really helps. One really quick, kind of easy thing to do that I read about is called the 4-7-8 breathing technique. And if you focus on that, it'll definitely, take your mind off of your anxious thoughts. And then with practice, it can actually, it can help you sleep better at night. Kind of forces the mind and body to focus on regulating the breath. Okay. So to practice 4-7-8 breathing, you need to just kind of sit down comfortably, find a comfortable spot. This is very much like mindful meditation. So in the cycle of one breath, let your lips part and completely exhale through your mouth. Kind of make a whooshing sound. Go ahead and make a whooshing sound through your mouth. Kind of. And then next, you're going to close your lips and you're going to inhale silently through your nose and count to 4 in your head. And then hold your breath for 7 seconds. And then you exhale, making that whooshing sound for 8 seconds. Now that's the cycle. Inhale for 4. Hold your breath for 7. Exhale for 8. And just practice this for a little while. I've been kind of starting to do this, and it's helping me sleep, definitely. So give that a try. I'm sure it can help. It'll help you focus on your breathing, definitely, and it takes your mind off of what might be causing you some anxiety. Okay. Okay, so I think I've filled your plate for one day. Thanks for listening. I hope you have a great day. And just be strong out there. And if you can't be strong, I'll be strong for you, all right? Hang in there. Be well.
Thank you for listening to The Upspin.